What if the free market America has championed for decades is now on life support? And the country is turning to state-run capitalism to survive? It didn't begin with a major speech or sweeping declaration. It started almost quietly with a startling headline. The U.S. government had acquired a 10% stake in Intel. Then, another announcement: the government was considering direct investment in defense contractors such as Lockheed Martin. That's when we realized this wasn't business as usual. This is a profound ideological shift. Donald Trump, long positioned as the figurehead of small government conservatism, suddenly abandoned many of his core principles. He began embracing a model that looks far closer to China's state capitalism than America's free market heritage. So what caused this sudden reversal? And can this new direction actually rescue America from its current strategic decline? Today on Epoch Report, we're going deep into Trump's dramatic pivot towards state capitalism, why it happened, what it means for global markets, and whether this model, if it truly is America's new path, is even capable of success. Do you believe state capitalism is the answer to America's decline? Yes or no? Leave a comment below and stick with us. Because what is waiting at the end of this story might just reshape how you see the future of Western democracy. Let's rewind just a few months. At the beginning of his latest term, Trump entered office with a clear agenda rooted in classic conservative ideology: shrank the government, slash spending, and revive the free market spirit. Even launched a special department titled the Efficiency Office, whose mandate was to cut federal spending and reduce government redundancies. Within its first week, the office began mass layoffs and government downsizing. Agencies like USAID were slashed, and Trump supporters rejoiced. After all, this was everything they had hoped for: a return to lean government. But then June arrived, and suddenly everything changed. The Efficiency Office dissolved, layoffs halted. The plan to cut $2 trillion in federal expenses revised down to just $150 billion, and even that goal wasn't met. In fact, according to recent Treasury figures, federal spending in the first half of 2025 topped $3.6 trillion, up $150 billion from the previous year. Complete reversal. Why? Because Trump had begun realizing that the old conservative script wasn't enough to meet America's strategic challenges. Let's be honest, Trump's traditional base was blindsided. These were the same people who had spent years championing free markets, low taxes, and rolling back government overreach. Many were staunch opponents of China, part of the so-called decouple crowd. Back in February, Trump seemed fully aligned with them, pushing to ally with Russia to contain China, celebrating sanctions, even calling to expel all Chinese international students from U.S. universities. But fast forward a few months, and suddenly Washington was saying, "We welcomed 600,000 Chinese students to the U.S. That's more than double the current number of enrolled Chinese students." Meanwhile, foreign policy also took a stark turn. No longer was the focus on rallying allies to contain Beijing. It shifted toward economically squeezing those very allies. From isolation to opportunism in record time. And as for privatization, Trump reversed course there too. In February, he criticized Japan's attempt to buy U.S. steel. By June, he gave the green light, in part because Washington would gain golden shares in the process. Enabling direct influence over the company, it's a textbook case of state intervention in the market. In March, he blasted the $520 billion CHIPS Act as reckless government overreach. Money, he argued, that should go toward debt reduction. But by August, he used leftover funds from that very act to purchase a 10% stake in Intel. Not a dollar for the deficit. Instead, a major public-private merger. Let's be clear, America's journey towards state capitalism is not slowing down. It's accelerating. Now here's where things get even more serious, possibly more frightening for us strategists. Trump's shift didn't occur in a vacuum. Two major events catalyzed his thinking. First, the trade war with China stumbled badly. China countered U.S. tariffs. America faced frequent triple slaughters, simultaneous drops in stock markets, currency valuation, and bond performance. At one point, key U.S. industries nearly faced material shortages. Car makers and defense suppliers saw factories stall when China tightened exports of key rare earth materials. Decoupling backfired, pushing Trump to grudgingly re-engage with China and scale down tariffs. The second shock came from an unexpected front: the India-Pakistan military conflict. In what was arguably the first true live test of integrated warfare systems, think data-linked drones, AI coordination, real-time satellite tracking, Pakistan's downgraded Chinese fighters swept the skies, downing as many as 6 or 7 advanced aircraft. Even France's elite Rafale, capable of locking onto American F-35s, was shown to be vulnerable under China's networked military approach. America's top strategists had to ask, if this is what a downgraded system can do to NATO-grade fighters, what happens when we face China's full capabilities? More importantly, are we already falling behind? The numbers are sobering. China's projected 2025 defense budget stands at around $200 billion, roughly 1.4% of its GDP. America's, over $1 trillion, surpassing 3% of GDP. This imbalance raises a question. How sustainable is U.S. defense spending if it produces diminishing returns? Now add to that China's aggressive push to localize the semiconductor industry. If they succeed in building a fully independent chip supply chain within just a few years, America risks falling behind technologically, not just militarily. Consider this possibility. The U.S. loses military dominance, technological superiority, and overall economic scale, all within the same decade. What then underpins the global strength of the U.S. dollar? It's clear. America's leadership has realized that free market capitalism, as they practiced it throughout the 1980s and beyond, is no longer sufficient. Free market ideologues long argued that competition, unburdened by government interference, drives efficiency and balances supply and demand. In theory, it fosters optimal resource allocation and benefits all participants over time. But theory rarely survives contact with geopolitical reality. Short-term profit motives often sabotage long-term resilience. Markets won't naturally prioritize national security, industrial depth, or technological autonomy. Only governments can do that, and only with strategic foresight. Vietnam offers a real-world case study. There, one economist celebrated the government's laser focus on just one metric: employment. But that narrow approach sacrifices strategic depth. Prioritizing simple job numbers ignores the disruption necessary for upgrades in industries like tech and defense. Economic evolution requires trade-offs, and free markets aren't designed to voluntarily accept short-term losses for long-term competitiveness. And is competition ever really fair? Could an average citizen compete against someone like a billionaire investor in a so-called free market? Of course not. Power concentrates, monopolies grow, and wealth wins. So if state capitalism is the new game plan, is America actually capable of playing it? There's a big problem. Real state capitalism requires continuity, discipline, and centralized execution. It's more corporation than democracy. And no company swaps its executive leadership every 4 years. But in America, each election cycle brings strategic whiplash. Biden rolls out clean energy plans. Trump returns and scraps them. In just the first half of 2025, nearly $22 billion worth of clean energy projects were canceled. $6.7 billion in June alone. This kind of volatility destroys investor confidence. It's not coordinated industrial strategy. It's short-term political point scoring. What we're witnessing isn't classical state capitalism. It's corporate-backed. Government intervention dressed up with nationalist flair. True state capitalism demands more. Political cohesion, elite professionalism, and governance insulated from campaign theatrics. There's also a dangerous flaw in Trump's hybrid approach. If you invest in companies expecting shareholder dividends, while also claiming to run them in the national interest, you create a conflict, profit, or strategy. Already, stock markets responded positively to announcements about the U.S. taking stakes in key industries. Boeing gained 2.8%. Lockheed Martin rallied 1.2%. Why? Because these companies now expect government protection, preferential contracts, and lighter competition. But using national capital to chase private profits erodes the purpose of state guidance. Proper state-run firms should pursue national resilience, not quarterly earnings. It should be judged on its utility, not its share price. The challenge? without structural reform, managing not just capital, but personnel, doctrine, and corporate governance, America's state capitalism could devolve into cronyism. And here's the irony of all this. While Trump still flies the banner of capitalism, what he's building looks suspiciously like the skeleton of a socialist industrial model. Strategic national investments, central resource allocation, hybrid ownership. It's not quite Marxism, but it's no longer laissez-faire. This may only be the first phase. If America wants to truly compete with nations like China, half measures won't do. Washington may eventually need greater central authority, reduced congressional interference, and a professionalized planning system. Effectively, to win, the U.S. might have to become a little more like its geopolitical rival, at least in structure. If you're still watching, you're clearly not here for surface-level takes. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. At Epoch Report, we bring you insights that cut deeper than headlines. With just 10 minutes a day, you'll understand the strategic pivots shaping tomorrow's world and how they could affect your investments, security, and way of life. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought. Is it China's stealth fighters, its deep-sea capabilities, or its Belt and Road Initiative that's triggering this American anxiety? Surprisingly, no. The deeper concern is this. While Chinese living standards are rising steadily, American standards are in long-term decline. Wages are stagnant. Infrastructure is outdated. Costs of living are exploding. In the grand competition of global systems, the metric that matters most isn't GDP, it's living standards. That's the real scoreboard, and it's where the U.S. risks falling behind. What do you think? Is state capitalism America's future salvation, or is it a strategic trap? Drop your opinion below. I read every comment. If this analysis brought you value, don't just subscribe and hit the bell icon. Timing matters, especially in uncertain times. And with just 10 minutes a day, you'll always be one step ahead of the headlines here at Epoch Report.